Welcome back to the Scale Forward podcast. Today, I'm joined by Renny Chan, founder of Convo. Convo is a platform that runs voice interviews at scale and turns them into instant editable insights. Renny, it's great to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. So yeah, like as you said, Convo is a qualitative research platform that essentially allows you to have the depth of qualitative research and the scale and speed of quantitative research by leveraging AI kind of throughout the entire process. But for me, I think what's really important for us here at Convo, right, is that this is not a set and forget it platform. It's really, really important that people understand that we are the intersection between human and artificial intelligence. And that's actually what makes good research.
Okay, that's a great insight there. It's still AI while keeping humans in the loop. Can you give us before we go into the meat and all the good stuff, what's your background and how did you come up with the idea of Convo?
Yeah, I would say if your audience is interested in looking at my LinkedIn, I probably have the most atypical career. So I study finance, never worked a single day in finance. I ended up working in data and analytics for a few years in the Bay Area. And then I ended up doing growth for companies like Box and at Miro. And it was actually at Miro where the idea for Convo came to me. I was one of the earlier employees at Miro, rather. And I was responsible for new user acquisition at Miro. So, I had to do a lot of my own user research as a result. And, back then, AI wasn't really a thing. Cloning myself wasn't really a thing. So, I did a lot of interviews on my own. I think, hundreds and hundreds of interviews, probably like upwards of 500 interviews on my own. I sent out hundreds of surveys, right? And I was able to help Miro grow. It was kind of really a crazy time. You couple, like we were getting a lot of momentum and then COVID hit. So when we had less than 1 million users, we hit 5 million users in kind of like 6 months. And then that was COVID. And then that went from 5 to 40 in the kind of subsequent like year and a bit, right? Which was incredible. But, I think that to be able to do that, I really had to understand, our users, their pain points, how we could actually address them. What were things that motivate them? And actually understanding like, hey, like how do their organizations actually work? So that came out a lot without all these kind of user interviews that I did. And yeah, I think the whole time I wanted to be able to kind of scale this, but it was impossible. So fast forward to, about a year ago, and that's when I started building Convo, the kind of first version of Convo itself, right? The MVP, which is an AI agent that will go out and have a natural voice conversation like you and I are having right now, ask follow-up questions, and then instantly analyze the data. So, something that used to take me, 3 months, now it's a couple days, right? You can kind of get that, the level of insight, right? And now we're kind of embarking on the next phase of Convo. As I said before, right, it's really important that we are the intersection between human and artificial intelligence, right? So we're building additional tools into the platform that enable that, right? Allowing people to chat with their data, right? So you have almost like a research partner that you can actually talk to at any time about your research. And there's a lot of other benefits actually that come from that as well, right? Because then the research, one of the pain points for a lot of researchers is that a lot of research actually gets repeated because nobody knows essentially like what research was done before, right? But now if you have this central repository where you can actually talk to all of your data, your research essentially becomes this evergreen resource that anybody can go to and ask it questions depending on what they're looking for. So, yeah.
What a journey. Okay. Wow. What was it? 5 to 40 million? That's insane. And then, so
Yeah.
you keep picking goals at Miro and then went to solo founder. What? Walk us through the decision. What did that feel like?
I guess I just, pain and suffering in certain ways, for lack of a better word. But no, so I think the reality was for me, I'd gotten to a point financially where I was like, hey, I could try and do something on my own. And, I have to give a lot of credit to my partner, right? Because if it weren't for her, I don't think you and I would be talking today. I would just be continuing to work at wherever I was working at. And it was actually through these discussions I had with her around like, oh, I'm thinking, I was not happy, but like, I just wanted to do something on my own and kind of was just always worried. And she convinced me, she just said to me, she's like, listen, I know you well enough that I know that if you tried this and you failed spectacularly, at least you could tell yourself you did your best and it just didn't work out. But if you didn't try it yourself, she's just like, I won't hear the end of it in 10 years and I just don't want to deal with that. So like, go, please take this risk.
Just stop talking about it and do it. Shout out, partner. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. She's incredible.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, all right. Sometimes it takes the people closest to us to, give us a kick up the arse and actually do the thing. All right. Well, you kind of did touch on it already, but like, let's talk about the product. Let's talk about Convo, but sort of like the nitty gritty. So walk us through how the typical user would use it, who's the main ICP, and then from there, I'll ask a few more questions about how it handles quality and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, right now our primary ICP are research and insights professionals, right, doing consumer market research or their own product research, right? So if you're in brand, you're doing product research. If you're agency, you're helping do consumer market research type thing. And I think typically how they actually use our platform today, right? There's a couple of paths to get them started, right? So it really depends on what they're trying to learn, obviously, right? But if they are doing kind of more generative research, right, which is essentially like trying to understand, maybe bring a new product to market or that kind of thing, right? So they would want to talk to people that maybe haven't interacted with their brand before or anything like that. And we give them the option to actually do that because we actually have access to different recruitment panels that they can actually use to actually conduct that type of research. Otherwise, right, they're actually doing some more just kind of understanding how people will use their current product, right? We also allow them to do that as well, right? So they kind of have to decide what kind of research, what they're trying to learn, right? And then kind of based on that, it's actually fairly simple to set up a research project within Convo. It takes like 5 minutes to get you going. And if you're a seasoned researcher, you already have a discussion guide in mind, like the kinds of questions you want to ask and that kind of stuff. So how we help with a lot of that is if you're not sure what kind of questions you ask, we can actually generate questions using AI for you. When you're setting it up, you actually just input your goal, like what you actually want to learn. And based on that, we'll actually generate to the types of questions for the AI to go and ask. And you can customize the AI a little bit here and there by giving some custom instructions and that type of thing. But yeah, all that takes, about 5 minutes to get you set up. And then you're actually off and ready to go, right? So if you are interviewing your own users, you can upload a list of your own users using CSV or something like that. And we kind of take care of the rest. The email goes out. And, the beauty of this is, the people who are responding to this don't have to schedule time with the researcher anymore. So that saves a huge amount of time not having to coordinate schedules. And the participant can essentially answer at their own convenience, right? Like if they have a 10-minute break or whatever, they can do that, right? Versus like, oh my God, I got to schedule this time. Now I got to come to this. And I think if you talk to any researcher, they'll tell you there's a lot of people who kind of no-show, right? So you schedule time with them and you sit, we wait, and they don't show up, right? So this helps reduce some of that, wasted time, right? And to give you an idea of like the scale that we can do, a couple of weeks ago, we actually did a fairly large-ish research project for a Dutch research company here in Amsterdam. And in 48 hours, we interviewed 100 participants for them. And these are kind of, I would say this is an audience that generally are harder to reach as well. So that's like kind of quote unquote slow in that situation, right? And as I mentioned, you have instant analysis as well. So every time a new transcript comes in, every time a new user has finished a call, we analyze the entire corpus of data for you, and we extract all the different themes that we can actually see that are coming from all the different transcripts. So what people are saying about the product, or what people are thinking, how people are feeling about the questions or whatever that you're asking. We extract all that data into a nice little report, and you can see that entire synthesis of the project itself. We also analyze that at the question level for you, so you get the same level and deep insight for every single question that you've asked. Because as any researcher who's listening to this will know, that sometimes you'll ask a question and after talking to 10 people, it was like, okay, this was like a really terrible question because I'm not getting any data out of this. So this allows you to then also adapt and start to change that research kind of on the fly as the responses are coming in. And we have a few kind of, I guess, like quality of life type stuff that is really helpful for researchers, especially when they're presenting findings to their stakeholders. So once you have everything done, we extract the specific quotes where we're getting these insights from, and If you want, you can actually click on the quote and it will even play the video for you so that you can actually hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And this has been extremely powerful, I think, in my experience of convincing my stakeholders that this is something really important for us to work on, because like, hey, these are actual real people saying this. It's not just me telling you, relaying you kind of information. And then that moves you on to, if you want to spend more time now and actually make this research great, we have a tool called Omni. Essentially, like I said, it allows you to chat with your data, but it does more than that. It also allows you to combine your interviews from different platforms. Right? So you might have done interviews on your own, and you can combine that with our AI moderated interviews into one large data set, and you can start to ask it questions. This is the idea of the research partner, that you can say like, hey, like, what did people say about X, Y, or Z? And then that will pull that out, and you can start to then put together your final report that you want to be able to send to your stakeholders. So that's kind of like a typical, I think, like from beginning to end, how that would look like.
Yeah, I mean, wow, you've covered a lot of bases already, right? So you're a year in. Obviously, you've done this so many times. First of all, 100 interviews in however many days you mentioned. It's crazy. 48 hours, not days.
Yeah, 48 hours, yeah.
How long would that take you previously? Like 3 months, you said?
At least, right? There's like, I mean,
Crazy.
typically in the past, I would do, yeah, like if you want to do 10, you're talking about like, if you're lucky, 3 weeks, right? 2, 3 weeks, depending on schedules and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that's, I mean, massive value right there.
Yeah.
All right. What about if you get like some jokesters and and they just don't want to answer any questions, or they're just super vague? Is the model smart enough to pick up on that?
Yeah, so the model is actually smart enough to understand, especially when people are being particularly vague, right? That, oh, hey, for example, if the question is something like, what are your general thoughts on Russell, right? Someone might just say like, I think he's pretty nice, right? Which probably makes you feel pretty good. You're like,
Someone
oh,
would say
that's
that.
pretty nice. He's pretty nice. But the model will actually understand that that's actually not really helpful to you, Russell, as a person. So it would actually say like, okay, well, what did you actually mean by nice? Is he a compassionate person? Is he helpful? Is he friendly? And to kind of really dig in to really understand like what the person actually meant by nice. And as far as jokesters go, I think when I first, so this is, I think, like kind of a little bit of a gotcha as well, I guess. When I first started building this, I didn't really think about that use case, I guess, where people would, do things that I didn't think about. And we have a demo, on a public facing demo on our homepage, and people started to ask our AI to do kind of strange things. And when I looked at the transcripts, I was just like, oh, okay, well, this is not cool. And for a couple of reasons, but I think one, it's like, okay, you're kind of using the tool in like a really strange way, and this is not how it's supposed to work. And two, right, it costs the company money if you just kind of get it to do all these strange things. So yeah, now there's gates kind of in place to prevent some of that.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of conversations with some AI security thought leaders, and I think a lot of companies forget that sort of guardrails and how people can try and manipulate an AI. There's a lot of people out there doing that right now, so that's an interesting one. But I imagine never ending for you. You're going to have to constantly improve that, right?
I think so, right? I think it's the difference between deterministic software and probabilistic software, right? Because I think in the past, you would create software and have like a happy path that people would kind of go through, and they might sway from the happy path, and you might have some of these weird edge cases or whatever. But in this instance, when it comes to AI, right, the non-happy path is just whatever the person's machinations are, right, at that moment in time. And you have to really be kind of careful, I think, of that.
Yeah, agree. Okay, let's rewind
Sure.
just a little bit, because where you're at now is not where you were 6 months ago, 9 months ago. So take me back to your first sort of time where you were just putting this out to the market and testing it. Where were you? How did you do it? What was your strategy behind sort of getting your first customers or test pilots?
Yeah, when we first kind of went to market, I would say I'd never kind of done anything from 0 to 1 before kind of in my life. So if I were to do it again, I think there would be things that I would probably change a little bit about it. But, you know,
Let's talk about those. next.
Yeah, but we did the kind of like the very typical thing. We did a launch on Product Hunt, right? We messaged a bunch of people on LinkedIn to let people know about this, right? And that was kind of our first, push into the market. And I think what was really interesting about that, the big learning there actually was that it wasn't actually Product Hunt that got us a lot of our momentum. It was that we actually got picked up by Superhuman AI, that newsletter. And because of that, our wait list went from like, we were getting like 2 or 3 people a week to, we got like 200 people in like a week, which was kind of insane for us.
Did you have an affiliate link for them, or did they just shout you out?
They just shouted us out. We didn't ask. Like, I don't know anybody there. I mean, I wish I did because, I probably asked for it again now. But, but, but yeah, I don't know anybody there. They just kind of picked us up and said, like, hey, these are the tools that we think are really cool, or whatever list I think it was. I can't remember exactly now.
That's actually a little growth hack, by the way, for other SaaS founders who are looking to drive signups. Is contact these newsletters. Superhuman maybe is, or the Neuron, for example, might be a bit of a stretch when you're just starting, and a lot of them ask for
A
thousands
bunch
of
of money.
dollars for a sponsored post and everything. I mean, they got to run a business too, but smaller newsletters from 2,000 to 20,000 subscribers might be the sweet spot if you're just starting out to get on them. So I don't know if you've tried this again, Renny, or gone back to that, but that might be a strategy.
I haven't yet. Actually, later this year, I am going to do another Product Hunt launch just because I can, because we are also just like fundamentally really kind of changing the product itself. And I will actually be looking into reaching out to some of these newsletters that did pick us up and gave us a lot of momentum from that. Yeah. Because I think I do agree with you, right? I think that some of these newsletters do have a lot of reach. And I know that some people are like, oh, who reads these things or whatever. And I'll be honest, like I do. I read, like, the newsletters that I subscribe to are like curated to me, and the things that I purposely subscribe to. So I actually, like, the ones that come in every day, I read them.
Yeah, I used to work for Beehive, and they've actually made it really easy for founders to get sponsorships, sort of without talking to anybody. You can just buy a spot. So
Yeah.
maybe a little shout out Beehive. Check out that. Okay, so but you mentioned these LinkedIn messages. Where was the product at when you first started messaging people, and what were you saying? Like, hey, I built this thing. Check it out.
Yeah, that was kind of it. And I think this is where I was saying, if I were to do this again, I'd probably do it a little bit differently. I literally really didn't have much of a strategy, right? Like, I would just on LinkedIn search, look for UX researcher or something like that as a search term. And then I just start hitting people up, right? Like, and messaging them like, hey, like, look, I made a thing. Can you check this out? And I would say that the learning for me there is that you need to really be kind of focused on who you're actually building this for. It cannot be just like all UX researchers in the world, right? Like, because I mean, obviously that'd be great. And we want to do that. We want to get there. We want to be at the point where all qualitative researchers use us. But that's just not gonna, it just kind of means like you're not really building for anybody, right? If you're building for everybody, that's kind of the saying, right? And that's actually very true because, early days, I would say the response rates were really, really low, right? Like, and in fact, like, some people would say like, oh, like, I'll try this if you pay me, kind of thing, right? And I'm just like, well, obviously I'm not going to do that. So, okay, thanks for your time. But yeah, so now I think the approach I take is a lot, I would say, more kind of surgical, right? Like, my list isn't this like, 20K list of people that I'm going through. It's more like a few thousand or whatever. And it's just like, okay, this is very specific. These are consumer market researchers at agencies that are between 5 and 10 people who work with CPG brands, right? So, like, really kind of narrowing it down to super kind of long tail, I guess, is if I were to use, other marketing terms.
Yeah, sniper approach.
Yeah.
Works really well. Works really well. And from our last chat, you're not chasing hyper growth right now. So that aligns. That makes sense. Okay. One thing you did also mention, I'm a big fan of email, but you said it kind of flopped for you. So Are you still, how can I
Trying it.
say, putting emails to the side and just saying this shit doesn't work, or is it part of the strategy down the line? You think?
I think it might be something I might revisit later. I did try doing email campaigns through Apollo and that sort of thing. And essentially, I think as a solo founder, right, like I have to basically every day I'm making these trade-off decisions of like where am I putting my time towards. And I'll be honest with you, my response rates on LinkedIn are 40%, and then the booking is like I book like 90%, right, which is astronomical for me, right? With email, my response rates are like less than 1%. And I'm just like, okay, well, from a resourcing perspective, it's like, and when I say resourcing, it's even just dollars too, right? Like if I'm spending money on a tool or whatever it is that I'm doing, I need to see some level of ROI. I experimented with that for, I would say, 2 months, and it just wasn't kind of bringing in the number of leads that I needed, unfortunately. Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I go to these founder dinners and I talk about this stuff all the time with them. And a couple of these founders, we're talking about Twitter, email, LinkedIn, which one works best? And one guy just goes, you know what? It's not about that. It's about distribution. You can do all the fancy marketing with your messages on Twitter, your emails, and your LinkedIn. But I can just make one video on YouTube and it'll drive more signups than any of those. And so the whole point of that is I think the best form of marketing is distribution. And so if you can somehow build an audience, whether that's a newsletter or LinkedIn, and I think you're doing this yourself, Renny, just creating content. Shout out Hormozy, 100 actions, 100 days, just create content every day. And that'll probably be better than any cold outreach that you'll ever do.
Yeah, I think I gotta jump on doing a bit more of that. It's funny, I've been talking to a couple of my founder friends, and we're not big social media people, I would say. But then recently, one of my friends started to become quite active on social media. And I was just like, bro, what are you doing? He's like, dude, you gotta be an influencer if you want to be a founder nowadays. So, yeah. So you're probably not wrong, and I think that my approach to content has been right now of just building in public, letting people know what I'm working on, what I've made, what I've done over the last week, any lessons I've learned, that kind of thing. But to your point, actually, we are going to embark on a larger research project actually around how people are feeling right now, and we're gonna try and interview people kind of all over the world, just to see. And so this has nothing to do with consumer market research, but it's more like so my chief research officer and I are kind of really into understanding the culture of now, like what's in the zeitgeist and that kind of thing, and how people are feeling, that kind of thing. So we're actually putting together a research project to kind of understand that. And we'll do a whole series of like how we analyze this data, obviously using Convo, and and then we'll be sharing kind of all the results with people of like, what's actually on people's minds right now in the world today.
That's a great lead magnet.
It's the hope.
That's a great lead magnet. And then put that into a newsletter, Renny,
Yeah.
and link it. I would be very interested to. Is the audio still fine?
Yep, you're good.
Yeah, I would be very interested into seeing. Well, that's going to be some interesting data, right? So, for example, happiness scores and all this sort of stuff from city-based. So, America's massive; you've got so many cities. What's the happiest city? Then, are Americans happier than Australians? Australians living in Thailand, like me, happier than the average Australian? I'm going to take a guess and say yes. And then like seeing all that data. Okay, that's going to take a long time though, for sure, right? Like how long do you estimate that study to run for?
Well, if we are able to do 100 people in 48 hours, the hope is that we can do, like, we're trying to see if we can, and this is like where sometimes some of this is a little bit tricky because it does get expensive as we scale up the number of people that we want to talk to, obviously, because every single person we have to pay for that. So we're trying to talk to an audience of about 250 people. So hopefully we can have all the interviews done in a week or less, because we can do, thousands of concurrent interviews anyways. And then the analysis, I mean, my chief research officer, Khalil and I will just sit down and start working away at it to try and dig up whatever insights that we can. So
Okay, fair
hopefully
enough.
it's like from end to end, maybe 2 weeks to finish the whole project.
Yeah, it's pretty quick. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. What are just on the marketing side? What are some of the current pain points you have, or your biggest bottlenecks that you're tackling right now, and what's the plan to solve them?
The biggest bottleneck is probably me as a as a solo founder. Because like to give you an idea, right? My typical day is between 7 and roughly 1 o'clock or so. I am working on the product. I'm solely focused on the product. I don't kind of do anything else. And then from 1 to 7 or 8 at night, that's when I start to do the marketing side of things. So that's when I'll have demos booked, and that's when I'll work on the messaging and all that kind of stuff. I would say what is working and what's not working for us, right? So what's working right now are some of the LinkedIn stuff that I'm doing right now. I think that what has worked actually extremely well for us is our in-person events. So I've been trying to attend more of those as well. So any of these kind of UX meetups that we have here, actually, in fact, I'm going to go to one tonight. Any kind of trade shows and that kind of stuff, right? Where you have market researchers and stuff like that in place. Every time we go that we've been able to actually bring in some really good high quality leads into the platform. I think it's because like the audience is, I think in certain ways, you have to find the right audience. But I think what's kind of tricky about qualitative research is that it's not something that everyone just understands what it is. Like you kind of have to explain what it is, and people are like, oh, okay, yeah, I totally get that, right? So it's not like a Miro where you can talk to anybody at any company and they'll understand the usefulness of this, right? So I think that's where having these very kind of curated audiences that go to these different events and stuff like that is really important and good for us. So yeah, the bottleneck there is just the amount of time these things take, the amount of time that it takes me to, prepare for all that. And also just like these events are just extremely expensive as well, right? You're talking thousands of euros for one event. And for a bootstrap company, you have to really kind of decide what's the right one for you to go to. And if you pick the wrong one, you can get screwed.
We'll talk about bootstrapped in a second, but how do you context switching is very difficult. But what I was going to say is you said you're working on the product and you're doing the marketing. Are you technical as a founder, or are you a marketer, or are you just kind of making it up as you go along? Not really doing that, but learning as you go in terms of like marketing and figuring out messaging and all of that.
Yeah, so I think as a growth guy, I would lean more towards kind of non-technical, but from my background in data and analytics, right? Actually, that's where I was first exposed to machine learning. So I taught myself stuff like Python and stuff like that. And yeah, so it's like I'm this weird, I guess, hybrid of a person who can kind of do both things. And I would say probably not the best at both things is the issue. This is the whole problem with jack of all trades, a master of none kind of situation, right? So, I'm good enough to get stuff working in the product the way I need it to work. I would say that I'm probably not the best engineer, right? I probably don't write the most beautiful lines of code, but product works. I would say that on the marketing side, could I get more juice out of the lemon? I probably can, but I think I can get 75, 80% of what I need right now. And as kind of early days, right? Like that's okay. I think if it's just 75, 80%, right? I'm not kind of at that like hyper growth stage where I'm like, okay, I need every single ounce out of that fruit that I can possibly get so that I can, whatever it is that I need to do.
Let's talk about some of the challenges that comes with being bootstrapped. I imagine decision making is probably one of the biggest ones, but walk us through because you want to stay bootstrapped, right? Like you're not looking to raise. Walk us through some of the decisions, and then walk us through some of the challenges of being bootstrapped and just how you think about solving them.
Yeah. So I think the biggest decision is where to allocate resources, right? And right now it's where do I put the very limited funds that I have that will make the best bang for the buck, right? And I think that that's always something kind of like every day I'm kind of thinking about this, right? Whether it's like, oh, do I want to run campaigns on Reddit, or do I want to buy another email automation tool or whatever, right? It's, I'm probably the person that all these SaaS companies hate, because I'll use something for 2 months and I'll turn it off, and like I don't, and I'm very kind of judicious about making sure I don't have SaaS stuff that I pay for and I'm not using, right? Like, yeah, it's like every single tool, it's very important that I'm getting some level of value out of it, right? For example, pitch.com. Early days, I wasn't sure if I was going to stay bootstrapped or if I wanted to raise funding. Well, I paid for a pitch.com subscription because they make these beautiful presentations for you, right? And after I decided like, oh, well, I'm probably just going to bootstrap, well, I immediately turned that subscription off because like Google Slides is good enough, right? I would say it's these types of decisions. I think how it kind of affects us is also just like in the kind of the goals of the company itself and what we want to work on, what we want to focus on. So there are, I would say, opportunities for investment that I obviously have to pass on because it's like, oh, hey, yeah, this sounds really nice, right? But this is kind of unproven for me right now, or I have no experience on it, and I'll have to pass on that. And I see like other people do have success with those channels, and I'm just like, man, maybe I should have done that. But then at that moment in time, it was just like, I'll be investing like, I don't know, a quarter of what I have in the bank in this, and that just isn't really, I think it's not a smart way to go about running your business, right? If like, okay, I'm going to, like, there's making big bets and there's also just being, I think, kind of silly about this. So, and then I think your question was like, how do we mitigate some of this stuff? One of the things that I've been doing that actually has been interesting as well, right, is that's because as I mentioned, like, events have been pretty good for us, but they're very expensive, right, to attend. So what I've actually kind of a little hack is I will, if there's like an event in Amsterdam or wherever, somewhere I'm close to that I can get to relatively easily, I won't go to the main event because the ticket's like, $2,000 or something like that. I'll just like attend the after parties. And that has worked pretty well for networking and actually building out our CRM, right? Because I guess the truth is like when you go to these events, like people actually do want to talk to people that can solve their problems no matter where they're at, whether I'm on a big stage at whatever event talking versus like, oh, I'm just at like this after party or whatever and people are hanging out and chatting. If I have something of value to offer them that can solve their problem, right, it really doesn't matter if I'm on stage or not.
True. Probably should have thought of that before I booked a ticket to fly to China this month for an AI conference. But here we are. I'm sure the basketball and the dinners are going to be worth it.
There you go. Yeah, you'll be fine.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, what about using Convo? Sure, in terms of research, data, feedback, how are you currently what's your feedback loop for people who are using Convo? Are you just reaching out to them manually? Do you have a team that talks to these people? Is it in app or in dashboard? Do you have anything in place?
Yeah, so I obviously use I dog food my own product, right? So we do have the ability to actually embed Convo within Convo to actually ask people directly what they're thinking about and that kind of stuff. So there is that part of it that I kind of do at scale and automate a little bit to make my life a little bit easier. But we're also kind of small enough right now that I can still talk to every single one of our paying users, right, on a relatively regular basis. And I think that has been kind of invaluable as well. Like, I think that when I first was building this, I actually had a co-founder, right? And I think this is where we were kind of at odds, right? Where for him, it was, we need to start making money off of these people right away. I was more of the belief that like these feedback that these people are going to give us are way more valuable than I think at the time we were charging like $50 or something, which we have now changed the pricing. But yeah, I was like, the feedback that we're actually going to get from these people is way more valuable. And it has been, right? It's actually helped us being able to shape our product roadmap to understand like, hey, like these are the pain points that people are actually experiencing. This is what we need to build to address that. Like, this is where we already actually help them address some of these things. So yeah, I think it's really important, even though I have a tool that can help me with a lot of this. And I certainly do use it for that purpose. I think that right now it still makes a lot of sense for me to talk to the users. And, I think I was very humbled, I think, by kind of our early users as well. When my co-founder and I decided to part ways, it was actually like, it wasn't like anything negative. He became a dad and, he needed to be able to feed his baby. So that's unfortunate, but obviously can't hold his feet to the fire that way. I actually did, I wasn't sure if I was going to continue building Convo actually, because I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know if I can do this by myself. So I actually did reach out to all of our paying users. It wasn't a lot, like a handful at that time. And I explained the situation to them, right? And every single one of them said to me, like, no, like, just keep building this. Like, just take your time. It's okay. We can wait for those features or whatever, and let us know if there's anything we can do to help, right? And I think that was really kind of surprising for me. But B, I think that that's actually something that's extremely important early days as a founder, is to have paying users that are fans of you as a person and of the company, right? And the only way you can build that kind of trust is to have these types of feedback collection sessions with them.
Right. And then you asked them to pay double and they all did. Got
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. I can, I'll clip that. I can understand a co-founder who ended up leaving because he was a dad, that you got to put food on the table. And I think it's not a bad thing to start charging for something early on and add features later. It can go both ways, but I guess it's got to be congruent to who you are as the founder, and it's working for you. And yeah, it's pretty rare to have early adopters be so supportive. I guess that's because you've been in touch with them for so often.
Yeah, I'm a pretty transparent person, right? Like I don't. There's not a lot of stuff that's hidden about me. So I think that also helps. It's just kind of being very open with them to let them know. And I think the other thing is I just am extremely, I would say, customer focused as well. So I know a lot of people say that, but I'll give you an example actually. So we're kicking off a pilot with a German customer today. And, we have multilingual support, but that was just on the AI conversational side of things. So on your screen, you would still see English while the AI is talking to you in German. Yesterday, I was talking to them and they're like, oh man, it'd be really nice if this stuff was translated to German. And as you can probably or can attest, or like most people will know that like translation is not like something that you can kind of do. It's not something super easy to do. So I was like, well, I'm not sure that that's going to happen. And they were like, yeah, it's okay. Like, but maybe for the future. And I got off the phone with them and that kind of just didn't sit well with me, that I was like, oh man, I can't do this thing for you. So I overnight shipped German support so that all of the text that their participants see will be in German, so that they don't get this weird experience where the text is in English and the person talking to you is in German. But yeah, that's just how I think customer centric I am.
It's actually very German of you. No, we cannot have it like this. We need it. Okay, I'll have it by tomorrow. Done.
Yeah, exactly.
All right,
but they were happy because they weren't expecting that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. I mean, it's unreal. Good luck doing that with, I don't know, Swahili or
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let me ask you about the team before we move on to the lightning round. Obviously, you're solo founder, your co-founder left. It was just you. But talk about the team behind Convo today. How many of you are there, and are they all remote?
Yeah, there's 3 of us, and 2 of us are here in Amsterdam, and 1 is in Long Beach. So our chief research officer, Khalil, is in Long Beach. He comes with, 25 plus years of consumer market research, work for amazing research firms like Cantor and Holland Partners and that kind of thing. And now he's doing he's doing our thing, I guess. And then I have a recent grad actually from the University of Amsterdam here. Their background is in academic research. So, they've been really kind of helpful in helping bolster the analysis and the type of insights that we're able to provide. So, but I don't get to see them that often because they live in kind of a very remote part of Amsterdam, and it takes them, I think, like 45 minutes to get to the office. So I guess technically it's kind of remote too.
Yeah, not in 2025. I'm not driving that far to the office. All right, let's move on to a lightning round. So the
Cool.
whole point of this round is I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to just answer it with the first thing that comes to your head as quickly as possible. Ready?
Yeah.
What should never be automated in research?
I think that the iteration of research should never be automated, right? The human should always be in the loop for that. As the research starts to come in, you need to be able to understand what your insights are starting to tell you and what it's not telling you. And you need to be able to kind of shape the research that way. And I don't think that should ever be automated, in my opinion.
Can you tell us the best guardrail to keep interviews from going rogue or off track?
This is a great question. The best guardrail to keeping the interviews from going off track. So there's, I would say, very strong prompting right now is producing.
Okay. What will surprise us about AI research by this time next year?
I think that there will be a significant increase in adoption of AI research. I think that I've seen this just even in the last year or so that I've been working on this, that, like a year ago, a lot of people were like, oh no, like, I don't think I could trust this or whatever, right? But now you actually have, I actually have people reaching out to me saying like, hey, can I actually add this to my workflow? So I think the adoption is going to be significantly higher. And more people are going to be willing to actually participate as a participant with AI research as well.
All right. And just in general, for everyday use, Claude or ChatGPT, and why?
Oh, this is a hilarious question. If you asked me 3 days ago, it'd be Claude. But now I'm moving over to ChatGPT. And the reason is, so as a solo founder, I have to kind of do a lot of different things, right? So I do use some of these AI coding tools, and Claude was really, really good and has been really good for the last, I would say, 2-3 months. But over the last 3 weeks, I would say performance has deteriorated significantly. Like it would just start to make stuff up that I'm like, dude, this is not actually anything that you should even be doing. And at around the same time in ChatGPT has really actually put a lot behind Codex, and the results I've gotten from Codex are significantly better, and I've been able to save a lot more time using Codex than Claude. Like with Claude, I feel like I'm better off just writing the code myself because it makes so many mistakes.
And you're giving it the same context?
Yeah, I'm using the same context and the same prompt, like similar prompts, I guess. Like I'm probably adjusting the prompt now. But yeah, with ChatGPT, with Codex, it's a lot more one shot.
Okay, just brace yourself with ChatGPT 5 and all that, just thinking. It thinks for about 3 minutes just to answer 1+1. It's so annoying.
Yeah, they need to fix that.
Yeah, for sure. Alrighty. Okay, Renny, well, super insightful. So where can people learn more and I guess try Convo? Where's the best place to reach you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place to reach me, or you can email me. I'm renny@getconvo.ai. The website is getconvo.ai. And yeah, you can try a demo, like you can try to talk to our AI actually right on our homepage. And then if you want a proper demo of the analytics or anything like that, do let me know, and let me know that you heard about me from this podcast. Happy to give people a discount on the product itself.
Well, that was unexpected. Wow. Awesome. Okay. And before we wrap up, do you have anything upcoming for this month that you want to let the listeners know about as well?
Yes, I'll actually be at the AI and Big Data Expo here in Amsterdam on September 24th I believe that we've also been entered into the pitch competition there, because so how we got into this expo was because I won first place at the Amsterdam AI pitch competition. So this was part of that prize package, is to be entered into this pitch competition here.
Awesome. And last question, if you had to give a piece of advice to another young founder, what would that one piece of advice be?
I think that the advice I would give is just go out and do it, right? Like, don't be too afraid of failure. I think especially in Europe, there is a huge culture of failing as a business owner. But I think that learn a lot actually just doing this, right? Instead of sitting on the sidelines. It's been an incredible experience for myself.
That's some solid advice there. Well, Renny, thanks again for coming on. For those of you listening, if you've enjoyed it, please share it with someone who you think would find it useful. And again, Renny, thanks for joining us. We'll see you on the next episode.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Russell.
Stop.